My brother texted me last week to tell me they shipped him out to the Strait of Hormuz. He's sitting on a boat waiting if they're deploying the Marines in Iran. I'm so tired, dog. This administration is holding my brother's life in their hands. I've been literally spamming the conscientious objector thing over and over again. I don't know why you guys won't do it. Also, apparently Hezbollah killed an IOF soldier. An IDF soldier was killed and 4 others were wounded in a Hezbollah anti-tank missile attack in southern Lebanon earlier today. Dude, Hezbollah, I don't know how reliable the information coming out of like the Hezbollah tank operations are, but they have been melting $30 million Merkava tanks with like 10 at a time. Like they're not even, like I think yesterday they popped 18. I don't understand what the fuck Israel was thinking, because like this has always been a failure, right? Like the whole, the Hezbollah line of like they come in vertical, they leave horizontal. Like there is a reason for that, right? Because Israel has tried it. And it's been a spectacular failure every single time. So I don't know why the fuck they're doing that right now. There's no getting rid of old inventory. Getting rid of old inventory doesn't work when you're talking about like 30 Merkava tanks, all of which are $30 million a pop. Okay? They just keep trying to do armored assaults through a mountainous area with a paramilitary that has ATGMs that they just keep deploying with regular frequency. And it gets real spicy for them. Not 30 million a pop, more like 6 to 10 million a pop. Okay, my bad. Like even with the trophy system and all the other like shit that they put on them, really? Anyway, Michael Rappaport having a totally normal one about you. I know. 750 million diverted from Ukraine to replenish those missiles. Nice. How are those trophy systems working out? Not good. They're cracking down on anti-American / NATO. Also in mountainous Norway, got arrested 3 days ago, and the coppers stole my electronics. What the hell? Yeah, Hezbollah has been on a daily basis reporting that they're taking out, like they're decommissioning like 10 tanks a day. Like they're averaging around 10 tanks a day. Like I think yesterday was like 18. And it's crazy. It is crazy. Amit says that Amit reports rare warning from Chief of Staff Zamir yesterday in the cabinet in the midst of war. I'm raising 10 red flags. The IDF is collapsing in and of itself. Background, a shortage of combat soldiers and a heavy burden on those serving. Like, Hezi has been putting belt to ass. And they have historically done so, which is precisely the reason why Israel always just does like the aerial bombardment campaigns over and over again. And they never dare to fucking invade militarily. It's crazy that they're just like amidst this bombing campaign that's taking place in Iran, and their defensive munitions are deteriorating, and Iran has reached a level of success in terms of their strike capabilities unlike anything Israel's ever experienced before. Okay? And it's very clear that because they're running out of stock on the Arrow systems as well as the interceptors, they're trying to reorient high priority targets. Like they're trying to move their ammunition to important targets like, officials within the government, IDF headquarters, and I assume like, their Air Force, things like that. Because if they don't do that, they're just going to get fucking they're going to keep lobbing missiles at those locations, and then they're going to start successfully attriting Israel's offensive capabilities. But because of that, they can't actually successfully defend the civilian areas. They've completely given up on certain parts of Israel. They're just like not able to defend it. And that's why you keep seeing over and over again successful missile strikes with no interception at all. Moin Rabbani has analysis on this. As I previously stated, Israel's aspirations to become regional hegemon is pure delusional hubris. Israel's too small and vulnerable, lacks the required demographic and resource base, and is fully dependent on external support. Already in Iran, we are learning that Israel is bitten off more than the U.S. can chew on its behalf. A state that can't decisively defeat a second-order militia like Hamas or administer a fatal blow to Hezbollah and needs the full might of the U.S. to wage war against Iran, a state under comprehensive sanctions since the 1970s, is now threatening to take on NATO member Turkey, and after hubris comes nemesis. Okay? The IDF chief of staff has warned that the IDF is on the verge of collapse after 900 straight days of war. This is what he told the government yesterday. Reservists are being stretched to a breaking point across multiple active fronts simultaneously: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, West Bank, and the Iranian front. No ultra-Orthodox conscription law has been passed, leaving thousands exempt from service in practice. The cabinet approved legislation of dozens more outposts and farms of the West Bank, requiring additional troops to protect them. Jewish nationalist terrorism is surging in the West Bank, requiring an additional battalion to be deployed there, with possibly another needed soon. Because, like, they have this endless ambition of advancing the Greater Israel Project, right? And in order to do this Greater Israel Project, you need more troops, because it's like this unlimited violence that you're subjecting the indigenous population of Palestinians to, and therefore there's going to be some retaliation. And in that, when that retaliation comes, you have to like defend the settler terrorists, right? Mandatory service is set to shorten to 30 months in January 2027, the opposite of the IDF's request to extend it to 36 months. The government is avoiding passing the necessary laws, conscription, reserves, extended service, largely due to political pressures related to the Haredi exemption controversy. The expansionist policies of the government are straining the army to the point of no return. The IDF cannot carry this load and will collapse into itself, according to the chief of staff, soon if the wars of expansion do not stop. Israel is simply not big enough and not rich enough to dominate the Middle East in the long term. And it's the craziest part about it is Israel and America are not even big enough and rich enough to continue this, right? That's what's so wild about it, because the first time there is actually a sovereign state with defensive and offensive capabilities willing to fucking go to bat, willing to actually do the unthinkable, which is fight back in a way that only sovereign states can, all of a sudden, the dynamic shifts so dramatically, okay? This is huge. This is huge as far as like diminishing American capabilities, diminishing America's force projection capabilities, diminishing America's like actual surveillance capabilities in the region, radar systems, and destroying American military equipment in the process is bloodying the American nose a little bit. And I've already explained to you guys, especially many of you in this community that are obviously anti-war, that this kind of military, this kind of militant deterrence is not necessarily a bad thing, because in the absence of a sovereign state that is willing to take on American hubris, we have dominated the entire planet in very violent ways, and in ways that actually do not benefit the American citizens either. None of our imperial endeavors actually are beneficial to the average working class American. But because we've been able to, continue this war machine without much domestic impact, right? Because at the end of the day, Americans can just like not know whatever the fuck we're up to, on the other side of the planet, and be totally sheltered from the impact, with the exception of like what's going on right now with the oil prices, the price that Americans experience at the pump, right? With those exceptions, like Americans can just like live their normal daily lives, and the American government is so powerful that they can shelter the American population from the impact. But all of our resources in this somewhat invisible way is being allocated to constant military adventurism overseas. And those are resources that are much needed here. So my argument has always been, we should put an end to this endless warfare all around the world and eventually spend our, collective output, our resources on ourselves. This will give breathing room to the rest of the planet. This will give breathing room and offer sovereignty and dignity to the nations in the periphery that have often been dominated by Western imperialism. And this will be beneficial for us Americans as well. So that's the reason why I don't have this like American imperialism is falling apart, and therefore this is a bad thing attitude that I think American chauvinists have, and their attitude has started shifting a little bit. I think like people are seeing exactly what's going on, right? For the past, 3 weeks, I think people were just like holding on to this idea that like America's going to pull through. Obviously, our dicks are so hard. We have the mightiest military. We have the most sophisticated equipment. It's the most expensive military. Not realizing that we were not achieving our war goals, right? This is beyond the fact that obviously we were, goaded into doing this thing because of Israel directly. And I say that all the time because it's true. And my first principle is say the truth, right? Always say the truth. You do not have to compromise on that. And that's the thing. Like, even those who are a part of the American foreign policy machine, the blob, if you want to call it that have always demanded that we finally do this thing, right? Go to war with Iran, recognized fairly quickly that this is not working out in our favor. Perhaps it was a lack of understanding Iranian capabilities, undermining Iranian capabilities. Perhaps it was because Iran had always demonstrated strategic restraint, and we assumed that was because they just did not have the tools to be able to, punish the global economy, punish American capital, punish America directly by destroying its tools in the region, right? But for one reason or another, we launched into this idiotic quagmire, pushed into it by Israel, absolutely, right? And now we're suffering the consequences of it. And you have troops. You have American troops gearing up for boots on the ground military warfare, which will be a spectacular failure. On the one hand, Donald Trump is communicating that he's ready for an exit ramp, right? And there is some there's some good news there, because I've been telling you from the start, the best out of all of the worst case scenarios, the best case scenario here is that America's nose is a little bit bloodied and they're forced into de-escalation and they're forced into leaving Iran alone. That would be the best possible scenario out of all of the likely outcomes here. The worst case scenario would be America continues to escalate and continues to wage war and tries to invade Iran with troops, with boots on the ground, and that would be tremendously bad. That would be that would be one of the worst outcomes. Obviously, the worst outcome would still be nukes. There's still room in the escalation ladder when you have nukes. On the one hand, I'm trying to figure out if it's a bluff, but on the other hand, I have seen the way America operates, and I assume that America doesn't actually, move troops into the region just as a bluff, right? Why do you wear a $5 hat in America but drip in Cuba? Honest question. I mean, I'm wearing drip here too. My own drip. Look. "85 seconds to midnight. Apocalypse in the name of profit." This is coming out on Friday. Dripping good. Thank you. Also, this hat is priceless. This is a hat I got in Cuba. So this is worth more to me than anything else. When is the line dropping, King? This Friday, as in tomorrow. Tomorrow, the next line of merch is coming out. Did you read Ken Clip's piece yet? Seems to think troops haven't really been moved in the way they've talked about. Yeah, we'll do all of that. Yeah. Everything you say is logical, but what do you think is going on in the minds of the Trump admin? Because continue just seems to be digging their own hole with losses and more. It's it's a difficult situation that Trump has found himself in, partially because he didn't listen to his own generals. He didn't listen to his own analysts that warned him that this exact same scenario would play itself out. And he listened to Israel instead. He listened to Witkoff. He listened to Kushner. He listened to Israel. He listened to Lindsey Graham, who was communicating the messages that he was getting from Israel to like specifically convince Donald Trump. So basically, for all of those reasons, he found himself in this massive quagmire, this massive fuck up, where like the rest of the markets are being punished. Obviously, everyone is like leaning heavily into their strategic reserves at this point. I just don't know. I don't know. I can't give you a real answer as far as like what Trump could do here, because he has done the unthinkable, right? He's done the unthinkable as far as invading, as far as bombing Iran, as far as killing the Ayatollah. These are unprecedented times that we are experiencing. We have never fought against an enemy like Iran, right? We have not had that situation happen at all. Even with Vietnam, for example, sure, there was the USSR, there's China, but like with Vietnam, they were getting funding and support from the USSR, and that was, you know, very helpful for them. But like ultimately, this was a country that was dominated by colonial occupation when America invaded, right? Whereas Iran has had a successful revolution, right? Iran had a successful revolution, and America never stopped trying to destabilize it. And for that reason, Iran has basically designed its entire society for this exact moment, to defend themselves and to defend their sovereignty at this exact moment, right? And that's where we're at. And the results are unlike anything America's ever experienced. It's far worse than any of the military, any of the long-standing military failures that we've had. You know, where we lose battles, but then we end up winning the war in some way, but we don't actually end up winning the war at all. We retreat, but in the process, we're making money. Like our capital owners are making money, right? That's normally how it goes. Wars are not meant to be won. They're meant to be continued. But the reality is this time, there is actually a serious penalty to the global economy. And therefore, you know, you're molesting the money a little bit. It's not, this is no longer a contained incident where you can just have your defense contractors inflate their budgets and send your developers down to an area that we have dominated and destabilized successfully and occupied militarily. This is no longer a contained case. Iran is very specifically and very deliberately striking back at the heart of capital, sometimes even American capital, right? And that is causing a massive problem. It's causing a massive problem. So Trump has two options here. Either he does the reasonable thing, as I said, does the smart thing, which is de-escalate, and pull out and take one of the fattest L's of all time. This will be seen as a resounding victory for the rest of the world, by the way. Like for the global South, for all the nations in the periphery, they will look to this and they will remember it. Okay, this will be seen, and it already has, regardless of where this goes from this point on, it already has shown the world that America is spread too thin. It's not capable of defending their security partnerships. Their security partnerships very quickly turn into, their collaborative security agreements very quickly turn into missile sponges, right? And I think that will have reverberations that will be felt across the world for decades to come. They can protect the one nation that matters, though? No, they can't. That's the problem. They can't even protect the nation state of Israel. This is completely devastating America's confidence. It's over. Arnaud Bertrand says, I don't think people realize how extraordinary what we're witnessing with Iran is. I was arguing with a dear journalist friend of mine yesterday. who was telling me that Iran was winning, yes, but only on the strategic level, not tactically. Okay? Think about other U.S. wars of aggression these past few decades. Take Vietnam, Afghanistan, Libya, Iraq, Serbia. The list is unfortunately very long. The pattern was roughly always the same, with an immense power differential between the aggressor and the victim. These wars were, by and large, imperial, the empire attempting to crush a much weaker people whose only realistic resource was guerrilla resistance. And that is when they actually had the will to resist. Some, like Libya, barely even bothered, just resigning themselves to their fate despite being at the time the richest country in Africa. Sure, the U.S. actually lost many, if not most, of these wars, famously replacing the Taliban with the Taliban or being expelled with their tail between their legs from Vietnam. But the power differential was no less real for it. It's just that power doesn't always guarantee victory. So these endeavors were failures as far as like America, enforcing whatever will they had upon these people. But they weren't necessarily failures from a capitalist perspective. From a capitalist framework, these were wars that were meant to go on, right? And in the process, people made money because they were somewhat contained, okay? They were contained. This is not contained. This is global as you can get. Although you can see it as a proxy potentially, and China has a limited involvement so far as we understand, as far as we know. It's America and Israel fighting against Iran, and Iran basically against the whole world, right? The impact of this, the impact of Iranian retaliation is felt across the world, especially in the Asian markets, right? So it's not necessarily good for American capital right now, especially because there's a balance, right? You lose some of your forces, you lose some of your tanks, maybe you lose some of your machines, and then those can be replaced. But you start losing radar installations, okay? Hard fixed positions. You start completely running out of munitions, like defensive munitions, and you're in a very different ballpark. You can't go above a certain level of attrition and still maintain your dignity and still maintain your leverage, your upper hand. America has gone far past that point. Okay, the moment that they abandoned their military bases and openly and readily admitted, by the way, something that you could have found out if you were watching this broadcast for the past couple of weeks, something that we talked about from like day 2 or day 3, something that we saw here was that these bases were fucking getting cratered, right? They were getting lasered by Iranian ballistic munitions and also Shahed drones. And for the price of like relatively cheap gear, Iran was able to destroy billions of dollars of radar installations and make these bases uninhabitable, unusable for a future campaign where troops could be stationed and create a logistical supply chain between the front lines and these bases, right? Like they were able to successfully destroy this stuff. And at the time, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you can't, this is nothing. I mean, we killed the Ayatollah. That's far more consequential. That's far more significant." And I kept repeatedly telling you, okay, the Ayatollah is dead, but I mean, Iran is destroying American military bases and causing billions of dollars of loss. This is a huge, huge deal. This is unlike anything America's ever faced before, right? Laser with a Shahed drone is an oxymoron. Okay, calm down. So, and you have seen mainstream media basically finally catch up to the realities on the ground. New York Times, I believe, reported on this as well. They said the bases are unusable. All the troops had to escape the bases. They had to retreat, and they're now working from home. They're working from civilian areas, right? That's an admission of defeat. And now Americans know it as well. Americans that don't come to the Piker Broadcasting Service know it as well. But that's why I always say, subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service for tomorrow's news today, right? That's why I say it. Iran is demanding the U.S. base be permanently closed, a condition for ending the war. Yeah, that's actually a gimme. 35% off subs. Wait, really? Nice. That's actually a gimme. That's like Iran saying we're going to collect tolls from people passing the Strait of Hormuz. Those two things have already happened, right? So that's actually not a real demand that they're making from America. That's basically like a freebie for America to make it seem like they're conceding on some things. Those things have already happened. Iran won those demands militarily, right? Iran accomplished those demands militarily when they actually present that as like something that they want. That's a freebie for Americans to say, yeah, sure, we'll concede on those points. It'll hurt to concede on those points, but at the end of the day, those points have already been conceded, right? The battle lines have already been drawn. It's like when Vladimir Putin says you need to recognize the legal annexation of Crimea, right? Like that has already taken shape, right? If you look at the situation or the eastern territories that we have hardened our positions in, like you have to give us legal recognition, right? Or at least de facto recognition of annexed territory. That's already happened. That was something that they militarily conquered. It's, you know, in the case of Russia, by the way, I'm not giving you like a moral consideration here. That's just the facts on the ground, right? As it stands currently. So when they present that as a condition for a ceasefire, that's actually given. That's actually there's a freebie for the American side to say yes to. Okay. So that's something to also consider. Anyway. But in the past, when you looked at these wars from afar, as we have done, it was like a big bully beating the shit out of like a helpless country, right? Destroying its population. These countries that had no standing military force to withstand the United States of America, and were engaging in insurgency battles. And America, experienced a lot of shortcomings in that process, but like, because of the ways in which these wars were contained, America could still make money without like reaching a level of receiving too much damage in retaliation, right? This time is different. And it's different. It's different in a way that you can see, right? It's different in an undeniable way because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, or rather, it's only open for business for whoever Iran sees fit. That's an undeniable reality, right? Donald Trump can go on television and be like, Iran is giving us a great gift and allowing ships to cross through the Strait of Hormuz, but they set those conditions, right? They set those conditions, and some of those conditions are directly undermining the petrodollar, right? Trading with Chinese yuan. That's a huge deal. Giving Iran a toll, a fee, where the Iranian Navy is controlling all of the commerce that's going through the Strait of Hormuz in a similar structure to the Suez Canal with Egypt. All right. So Donald Trump can say we're winning one of our goals here, but like it's very clear for everyone who's paying close attention to what's going on that no, Iran is actually putting belt to ass, right? Framing this as a gift to us is yet another recognition that Iran is setting the table. Iran is controlling all the cards. And it's something that is undeniable. There is no way that you can propagandize out of this. Like maybe for the cult, they'll say, oh, Trump is doing the best. Trump is killing it, right? But for the foreign leaders that are paying attention, they don't give a fuck. They see the truth. It doesn't matter. That is going to have reverberations. Ultimately, that is what that's what I'm paying attention to. Okay, that's what I think is massively consequential. Okay, but the Suez is different. Egypt has a right cause. Egyptian workers dug the canal. Yeah, but it's still a strategic choke point at the end of the day, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, my point is, it's right there, and Iran controls it militarily. They control it. There's no fair is fair in this situation. If you have designed the world for might is right, you can't turn around and try to lean into international relations like this. You have set the standard now, and you should be, if you're an America enjoyer, if you're an American, you should be very grateful that Iran has actually abided by restrictions and standards of the previous ways of doing business. Right now, they're doing might is right. But even when they're doing might is right, they still don't operate like America or Israel does, in spite of the reality that America and Israel aren't doing that. They are directly hitting energy grids first. That's huge, okay? Civilian areas, killing thousands of civilians, engaging in chemical warfare, right? Hitting refineries. Iran has not done that first. Iran has only done that in retaliation to America and Israel's actions. And even then, when you look at the casualty percentages, civilian versus enemy combatants, the American and Israeli civilian to armed combatant casualty numbers are both far higher as far as like total numbers, and they're far worse as far as the percentages. Okay? There being no way to propagandize out of this is exactly why Trump ain't pulling out. He refused to publicly concede else. He has done so before. This time it's a little bit different, though. He has done that. He's done that with Ansar Allah in the past. So when things get too sticky, Trump has time and time again demonstrated that he is capable of, pulling out. The problem is this time it's a far more consequential L. It's not like you're just, you're just stopping your unnecessary bombing campaign of Sanaa, the poorest country on the planet, Yemen, right? Like you're now very openly in front of the entire planet. You're very openly going to be conceding to a country that we had the capabilities of starving economically for 40 years. What does that say to the rest of the world? That we could not militarily dominate a country that we could economically dominate. We have destroyed the Iranian economy. We have forced them into finding alternative methods, alternative means. And we've done this to so many other countries that those alternative means actually revealed themselves as a matter of necessity, right? I've talked about this before. When you sanction the whole world, at a certain point, you're sanctioning yourself. And because we've sanctioned so many countries, because we have engaged in this tool of economic warfare, collective punishment in the form of sanctions on some of the poorest countries, that it probably played a major role in creating a secondary market. That secondary market has allowed Iran to at least survive, right? And here we are. What is this? River to sea. Some people wanted China to do their version of the USSR's Afghanistan. Thank God they didn't spread thin and let Iran take on the U.S. by themselves here to move the troops. He's not pulling out. Our soldiers have been preparing to murder Iranians for decades. He's not pulling out now. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I personally think that when America moves troops, they use them, right? At least when Donald Trump moves naval assets, he uses them. Even if there's a talk of an off-ramp, even if there's a talk of de-escalation, when America moves troops into an area, they're going to try and use them. We'll see. I hope that's not the case. Like I've said over and over again, and I stress the importance for the safety and security of the Iranian people, the Iranian government must remain intact, at least for now, right? The next day after, who knows? But for now, the IRGC must remain intact. The Iranian government must remain intact, because the alternative, if Israel gets his wishes across, means Iran collapses and is no longer a state. Thousands of years of history and culture is gone, okay? We've seen how Israel operates. We've seen how Israel operates in Gaza, how it operates in the West Bank, how it's currently operating right now in Lebanon, how it operates in Syria. You do not want that fate for your people, regardless of how much you might hate, for justifiable reasons, for good reasons, regardless of how much you might hate the IRGC or how much you might hate the Ayatollah. At the end of the day, This is a matter of survival, right? That's it. It's that simple. So the best out of all of the worst case scenarios is that America takes an off-ramp, de-escalates, gives Iran sovereignty, the country remains intact, and there's economic pressures that are released, right? The sanctions are released, and Iran can participate in the global economy as a normal sovereign state with dignity. And slowly but surely, the material conditions of everyday Iranians improve, and hopefully there are social pressures that are alleviated as well in the process, right? That's why I say the best case scenario for the Iranians is that America takes an L on this and gracefully exits, which we're not known to do. And this is actually good for Americans as well. Because if you understand that our endless military conquest around the world is not beneficial for the people that we're dominating, and is not even beneficial for us here in the imperial core, any sort of pushback that causes American restraint is good for the American people. It's good for the American people because you're not the state. You're not Mr. Lockheed and you're not Mr. Martin, okay? You're not John Raytheon. It might be bad for them if we stop funding these behemoths that demand more and more taxpayer-backed subsidies with their inflated budgets. But if you're a regular guy, if you're an ordinary American, all of your productive output is going to that. It's not going back to you, right? It's not going back to you. You might feel like it's going back to you somehow because your 401k is invested in like Raytheon or something, but that's marginal. If we were to restructure our economy to focus on ourselves, because we've taken this big L and we've decided, okay, we have to retreat from the rest of the world a little bit and focus on ourselves and build our infrastructure, focus on ourselves and build our education systems, focus on ourselves and build our healthcare systems. Something that people like yourselves in this community and myself, people like Bernie Sanders have been advocating for decades at this point. If we were to be able to achieve that by force, because of the bloody nose that we receive in this endeavor, that's a much more prosperous future for the United States of America. Okay? That's it. So this is not a bad thing at all. It's the best case scenario. Turkish people have a saying, zararın neresinden dönersen kârdır. Okay? It translates to, no matter which point you turn away from, harm or loss is a profit. Okay? That's it. And there has been a lot of loss so far. The IMEU policy project says just 1 month of the Trump-Israel war in Iran has cost U.S. taxpayers over $31 billion. Now, that is the most conservative estimate. Okay? That is the most conservative estimate. It's far larger than that. That money could have been spent on you. That money could have been spent on all of the deterioration that you have experienced in your day-to-day activities. You walk around, there's homeless people everywhere. Buildings look dilapidated. Okay? There is a downward trajectory for the United States of America. Our infrastructure is crumbling. We have no more rural hospitals in this country. These things require money to fix. We have the money. We're the wealthiest nation on the planet. Right? And yet, we don't spend it on ourselves. Because instead of spending it on these things that would improve the day-to-day experience of ordinary Americans, all that money goes to the CEOs and the major shareholders in the military-industrial complex. This must change. This is an infuriating indecency. It's unjust. And if America was able to dominate Iran militarily, it would never stop, right? It just wouldn't stop. And things would get worse and worse year over year. And we would wonder to ourselves why we live in the wealthiest nation on the planet, but it actually resembles a third world country with a Gucci belt. This is why. So that's why I have some optimism that we might learn an important lesson here. We might be forced to demonstrate restraint in the future. We might have to think twice, or in the best case scenario, we might have to retreat. And that's a good thing.
With Iran, Tehran has rejected a U.S. proposal to end the fighting. Iranian officials are mocking President Trump's search for a deal. Meanwhile, the bombing continues. Just look at this video showing an Iranian cluster bomb blowing up a car in Israel and sending it flying. Holly Williams is in Tel Aviv. Holly, good morning.
Good morning, Nate. President Trump claimed in a social media post this morning that Iranian negotiators are begging the U.S. to make a deal, even as they publicly deny that. Trump also warned Iran to, quote, get serious soon before it's too late.
Iran has its own conditions for stopping the war, according to the country's state media. Those include an end to, quote, aggression and assassinations, as well as a demand for reparations. We do not intend to negotiate, said Iran's foreign minister, and no negotiations have taken place. Yet last night, President Trump repeated his claim that Iran's leaders were eager to end the war.
And they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people.
Is it possible that the Iranians actually want to do a ceasefire deal, but publicly they're talking tough?
That might be. I mean, they are being decimated.
Retired General Amir Avivi served in Israel's military for 30 years.
There will be a point where they have to surrender. I mean, the combination of taking out all their leaders, destroying every single industry they have, and also closing the Iranian economy will bring them to the point where they will have to surrender unconditionally and accept that.
With whose money, man? Israel always has this attitude of like the fucking spoiled rich kid that's bullying all the other kids in the playground, and they only get to do so because of their daddy's money. You know? It's crazy. It's like, are you going to do that? Do you have the capabilities? Without American support, what can you do? Nothing. Nothing. It's unfucking believable how much these guys flex. Have you looked at the markets? No, I don't look at fake shit, dude. What do you mean?
But President Trump is also under pressure to end the conflict. After nearly a month of war, the Iranian regime is weakened, yet still functioning. Even under fire, it's shown it can paralyze oil shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, with global economic consequences.
There's speculation that the U.S. could use ground troops to seize control of Iran's Karg Island, through which the Iranians export around 90% of their oil. Now, that would pile more economic pressure on the Iranian regime. But one big question is whether the Iranian leadership would rather do a deal for their survival or die fighting. Vlad.
Holly Williams in Israel for us. Thank you, Holly.
Day 27 of the Iran war, President Trump claims to have obliterated Iran's military capability.
And he said that 27 times. Well, he said that 2,700 times because he says it like 100 times a day, and it's been 27 days. It doesn't really mean much, does it? Considering that there is no negotiations, at least like Iran has sent out their demands, and Trump keeps like following along with whatever Iran is doing and trying to make it seem like he actually made these demands ahead of time and Iran is following. their pressure when that's not the case. There's never been a moment where like the leader of the free world, right? Which is something you don't really see or hear anymore from people. Have you guys noticed that? The leader of the free world. That's how we used to refer to American presidents. The arrogance. Oh my God. Anyway, there's never been a moment where like the American empire's king, God king, the American president has been so thoroughly humiliated. It's actually unbelievable.
But there's no evidence on the ground that Iran is ever close to actually capitulating just yet. Yesterday, we looked at the US strategy for this war. Let's now look at what the Iranian strategy might be. What we are seeing is no let-up in Iranian attacks against its neighbours. But the key element here is there's two different wars going on. The US are conducting a war of choice. They're a superpower, and they are systematically using conventional military action against Iran and writing it down. For the Iranians, this is a war of national survival, completely different. They therefore are the David to America's Goliath. They've been planning for this for 35 years, and they've got to combat America.
That's the other thing. Is it still a bannable offense to be from Naperville? Yes. Free me. Take a second off. It's still a bannable offense. Komünistim diyorsun, ipek gömlek giyiyorsun, nasıl olacak o? Salak herif. What was I gonna say? The Turkish guy fucked me up. Addicted to monitoring situation, same. I've totally dropped what I was going to say.
And quality with quantity. And that explains why so many drones are being used in this conflict.
Oh, David versus Goliath. Thank you. People love an underdog story. That's the other thing. People love an underdog story. So it's pretty hard to look at the situation as anything but like the underdog kind of actually pushing back against the bully for once. Because like I'm not a hater of Americans. I believe in the notion of American prosperity. I believe that we have tremendous potential. We're just not using it because unfortunately the system of capitalism is designed to follow along the agendas and the profit, the interests of capital accumulation and continuing to expand profit margins. So we've been very violent. We've been very bloody. And it's not necessarily been beneficial for the regular American citizens in general. But ultimately, you don't have to be an America hater. You can be an American and recognize that we are the fucking bullies around the world, right? And now you got a situation where one of the people that we thought we could mercilessly whip around and bully is fighting back and actually succeeding. It's hard to look at that situation as you know, one where you feel kind of sad and humiliated. Maybe some do, but I guess the people that would most likely feel a sense of humiliation in this moment are cattle and therefore are reading a totally alternative set of realities and events. So the ones who would normally be mad, right? The people that would normally be frustrated, angry, and say, oh, these guys are fucking embarrassing us, nuke them now. They think the war efforts are going well because they're in the Trump cult, right? And the rest of the normal Americans who are not in the Trump cult are looking at the situation and going, why are we doing this? This is Hassan's most liberal take yet. I don't know, man. I have to believe that there is a better future possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, right? And there is something hopeful about the way that things are going. I mean, I explained it to you already. I think America receiving a little bit of a bloody nose, American imperialism necessarily, receiving a bloody nose here and then being forced to restrain itself is not a bad thing. It's a good thing for the world and it's a good thing for Americans. this is a unique moment of hope. It's hard not to see it that way. Because I think large majorities of Americans recognize this as a senseless endeavor, and therefore they don't necessarily care one way or another, right? That American selfishness is actually beneficial to our cause here. Yeah, you know what I mean? You really think they're not literally going to quadruple down? We'll see. The real problem here is not America necessarily. I mean, America is always a problem. It's the great Satan. If America's the great Satan, Israel's the little Satan, is what they say, and that side of the world, right? But like, America, in my opinion, has less ambition to destroy Iran and has more to lose than Israel does. Because I think Israel has lost the capability of conducting sober analysis. They're just seeing red, right? And for that reason, they will endlessly try to spoil any fucking off-ramp that America might get, that it might want to take. So that's why from day one I've said, America has to cut Israel out of this equation. They have to release Israel. They have to say, no, you're done. We're cutting you out. The American government has to remember that they hold the cards. At least, maybe not holding the cards in this tit for tat back and forth with Iran, but they are the large partner, and Israel is the junior partner in this coalition. And the faster they remember that, and the faster they cut Israel out of the equation and demand restraint from Israel, the easier things will be. There's been aerial bombing near the embassy of Pakistan and the residence of the Pakistani ambassador in Tehran in Iran very short while ago. All Pakistani diplomats are safe but shook. This while Pakistan, alongside Turkey and Egypt, is doing the shuttle diplomacy for de-escalation. I can see this being an Israeli endeavor. I can totally see this being Israel trying to spoil any and every opportunity. Yeah, Trita Parsi has the same opinion as well. Trita Parsi of the Quincy Institute says, difficult to believe this isn't coincidental.
Now, America has no appetite for boots on the ground. Iran knows that, and therefore this war is all about an air war. It's all about control of the air. Now, you might imagine that's all about fighter jets. That's clearly a part of it. But it's also about airborne early warning. It's about command and control. It's about battle space management. One of the key areas here is that during the 12-day war in June last year, Iran very effectively targeted a really crucial American radar site that's associated with all of the high-end Patriot, THAAD and Aegis missile systems. You can see the before and after systems here. Now, this radar system, there's only 6 of these operational in the world. Iran was able to take out one of them. Likewise, during the period of the war so far, in the last 27 days, Iran's also targeted the THAAD radar missile system. THAAD. There's only 10 of those available in the world. 4 of those,
I believe 11 is the actual number, but regardless, yeah.
have been taken out. 40% have been damaged. Now,
and there's only, let's say there's 10, right? There's only 10, and there's only 1,000 missiles for it. So these are very limited capabilities, and Iran has not only degraded these defensive capabilities, but they've also destroyed the stockpiles. I mean, they've depleted the stockpiles.
Air war, Iran has had slightly less success. America has lost quite a few aircraft, 16 we believe, but actually very few of those as a result of Iranian action. Apparently, it was infrared missiles that targeted an F-35, but we understand the aircraft did land safely, and although the pilot and aircraft appeared to get some damage, they were able to survive. The Iranians have managed to take out 9 MQ-9 unmanned Reapers, including one on the ground. The Americans have lost a KC-135 aircraft, but that looks like a tragic accident where two aircraft hit each other, losing, unfortunately, all of the crew on board. And America has also lost 3 F-15s, but that was all by a Kuwaiti F-18 that managed to shoot all of them down. Where the Iranians have had more success is in the use of drones. And particularly, there's a good example here in Iraq, on a US military base where the Iranians have used a drone to target a Black Hawk helicopter. And the crucial part about this message is that the drone is probably only a few $1,000s worth, whereas the Black Hawk helicopter is tens of millions of dollars and takes a long time to replace. The key here is that President Trump is fighting a conventional military campaign, whereas for Iran, they've just got to survive, they've got to gain leverage and then be in a position to have some strength in negotiations. And that's why the Straits of Hormuz is such a crucial part of this war. At the moment, the Iranians control this. There's no easy American solution to resolve that. And that's probably what explains why President Trump's getting increasingly erratic with his broadcasts on social media, particularly Truth Social. In summary, the US military campaign in Iran is definitely achieving results. It's breaking a lot of stuff and it's being celebrated by President Trump. But the Iranian strategy, as the underdog, appears to be one at the moment that is going to prevail.
This morning, I want to give an update on the Operation Epic Fury, which is an appropriate name because we are absolutely obliterating them. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been hitting Iran's military capabilities at a level that few people have ever seen before. People never knew there was such a capability. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world by far. I built it during my first administration, and I used it during my second administration. Unfortunately, because I'd rather not have to use it. But it's a display of force and precision and skill like nothing the world has really witnessed, although you get a pretty good witnessing of it in Venezuela also. And that was a smaller version of what we're doing now. We're crushing their missiles and drone stockpiles, destroying their defense industrial base. We've wiped out their Navy completely, their Air Force completely. We've wiped out a large percentage of their missiles. And the missile launchers, without the launchers, the missiles don't do any good. And we've knocked out probably...
This is the funniest cope too, because like the TLs are just like, they're literally K trucks. So when they talk about like wiping out missile launchers, these are unimaginably inexpensive tools. They're very easy to repair. You can repair with like, I mean, they're basically commercially available products. So like the Iranian defense capabilities are designed in a way where they're easy to replace, easy to repair, and quick to build. It's all retrofitted commercial trucks. So even as far as like the economic damage that they're receiving, it's marginal. It's inconsequential. And as far as like limiting their strike capabilities, it's also clearly not true, right? Hoodie check. Yeah, I'm wearing Operation Woke Sharia Law. New merch.
Close to 90% of the launchers, probably more than 90% of the missiles themselves. Between some they fired and more than they fired, we knocked out. We've also destroyed a lot of the factories. We're continuing to do that, but a lot of the factories where they manufacture the drones and the missiles. The drones, too, are way down, but the reason they're down is they go one way and they don't come back.
Yeah. That is insane. This is in, I assume this is in, is this in Iraq? Looks like it overheated after firing rockets at the military installation at Baghdad International this evening. Yeah. Technical alignment charge. Doctrine purist. A technical is used for raiding, recon, skirmishing, and patrol for an irregular force. Structure purist. A technical is a non-standard light tactical vehicle based on civilian pickup truck. A Toyota Hilux with a machine gun is technical. Structure neutral. A technical is any vehicle modified for combat. A Tachanka is a technical. A gun truck is a technical for the doctrine neutral, but the structure neutral. A technical is used for any combat activity. A doctrine radical. A technical can be used by anyone for anything it is good at. A Pok Pung Ho tank is a technical for the doctrine neutral and the structure radical. The Killdozer was a technical. I mean, this is insane, dude. This is insane. This is beast mode, and it's also impossible to fucking withstand. Impossible to... A Hezbollah fighter wears his own burial shroud in the battle. He's already accepted death in defense of homeland. Yeah, I mean, that's the other part of the story as well. But like this is crazy, man. This is some Mad Max shit. You see what I mean? The missile car is so spiritually Latino, I'm crying. What am I looking at? This is a regular car that they retrofitted the trunk space with missile launchers. Like, they basically take the car, position it in the direction of the Baghdad International Airport, and then just fucking launch missiles from it. I've been thinking about this a lot. If the AK-47 was like the symbol of revolutionary warfare, gritty, cheap, effective, could work in all terrains, now it's the Shahed drone. Like, it's turned into the I mean, this is not a Shahed drone launcher, obviously, but like it does feel like the AK-47 platform in the modern iteration of that is the Shahed drone. Incredibly cheap, incredibly efficient, incredibly successful. Holy fuck, my brother-in-law is stationed in Iraq, but he's a military contractor. I hope he comes back safe, but at the same time, he's such an idiot. There's no way I'm dying for a bag. Plus, I feel like my soul would have to be truly black. Yeah. I mean, if he's a contractor, he might be cooked already.
Because for the most part, we're shooting them down. But we also are able to, we've really done tremendous damage to the places where they make them. And just so we set the record straight, because I've been watching the Wall Street Journal's fake news and all these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody...
Like, does this inspire confidence? I genuinely want to understand the mentality of a Trump cultist. Like, how do you look at this situation that's unfolding? And you look at it and you go, no, things are going great, actually. Like, how... I want to understand the mentality of a Trump cultist that looks at this circumstance and he's like, oh, they are actually begging. Like, how do you deal with the inconsistencies? How do you deal with the contradictions? Because he is so quick at contradicting himself. It's not like we're talking about, sure, an information vacuum that exists, right? There's an information vacuum, you say. Okay. But he's the one who's also delivering the message. If you're only tuning into Donald Trump, then you still hear this inconsistency in the same time frame that he's delivering the message. It's not like he's not contradicting himself in the same 30 seconds. He does do it. So I just want to understand, like, how the fuck people hear what he has to say and think, nah, he's doing great.
That saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal. But they say, oh, we're not talking to them. Anybody would know that. And only a total fool. And they're not fools. They're very smart, actually, in a certain way. And they're great.
Oh, he's glazing too. This is how you know. Okay. He did this with the Houthis too. Once he starts glazing the enemy, that's when you know he's like, he's feeling it.
Negotiators. I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. And they are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. They should have done that 4 weeks ago. They should have done it 2 years ago. Or they should have done it when we first came into office, because 2 years ago they had free reign under Biden. Sleepy Joe, worst president in the history of our country. What he allowed to happen to our country at the borders, and even with a thing like this. But not just him. Every president for 47 years, every president should have done this. They should have done it a long time ago, because you cannot give lunatics a nuclear weapon, and they would have had a big one. It stopped really when we did the B-2, but even before that, the Barack Hussein Obama, what he did where he gave them the Iran nuclear deal, gave them free will toward a nuclear weapon. Basically, he chose Iran over Israel and others that didn't want him to do it. But I terminated that deal. Had I not terminated that deal...
If I was in his shoes, I probably would not remind people of the last time that there was actually a positive direction in our negotiations with Iran where they hadn't shut off the Strait of Hormuz and had destroyed billions of dollars of American hardware. Like, it's very strange. It reminds me of how, like, Israel would always be like, Hamas is ISIS, or Hamas is like Nazi Germany. I'd be like, if I'm Israel, I'm not reminding people of ISIS or Nazi Germany, because people are eventually going to go, wait a minute, no, it's not Hamas that's Nazi Germany. You are behaving like Nazi Germany, actually. So you're kind of reminding people, you're kind of reminding people of like a really big success in a moment of devastating failure that you've brought about. So strange thing to do, but what are you going to do? Examples of the cult. Oh, I love this. Iran is begging for a deal. You know why? Because they got the shit beat out of them. Trump, we don't deserve him. They hate anything to do with Trump, and instead see the people of Iran begging for us to bomb the regime. They just see their hate in Trump derangement syndrome and couldn't care less about Iranians. Do you care about Iranians? I mean, you're talking about, you know, continuously bombing them and killing them. Doesn't seem to be you care about them at all. New angle for why Israel and America aren't winning this war. The Iranians simply don't understand just how severe the damage to them is, and that's why they keep going. Oh my God. Oh my God. Brigadier General Oren Solomon, the Iranians are taking very hard blows from Israel and the US on the military front, and in my estimation, they don't understand how severe the damage to them is, and that's why they keep going. Wow. That's crazy. I mean, one could say this is projection. You might think it's hubris. I say projection. I say Israel, as a matter of fact, doesn't understand what is unfolding. And that's precisely the reason why they're continuously sending armored vehicles without infantry cover into mountainous territory in Lebanon and getting their $6 million tanks turned into fucking, you know, tin cans where people catch on fire inside of them when they incur ambushes. So, yeah. And that's all while, you know, the Israeli defenses have been depleted and Iranian missiles keep striking targets. Because what's going to end up happening is right now, the cluster munitions open up at higher altitude, which is imprecise, right? It's just to take pot shots and like frustrate the civilians, right? Because like those submunitions can't actually penetrate shelters or anything like that, right? But eventually, even if they're lobbing those cluster munitions, they're going to start opening the submunitions up in lower altitude. And when that happens, they can be significantly more precise with their targeting. When that happens, you're busted. You're cooked. That's when you'll know the Israeli defenses have been spectacularly diminished. Okay? And it's already happening. It's already happening right now, where Israel is making hard choices, hard calculations as to which areas that they can defend with their diminishing capabilities. And that's precisely the reason why you're seeing more and more Iranian ballistic munitions penetrate the aero systems and actually strike targets inside of Israel. Amit Segal agrees with you. Of course he agrees with me, because he's reporting on the reality on the ground. Israel has become convinced that Trump may try to end the war soon, and therefore shifted most of its airstrikes from targeting the destabilization of the Iranian regime to inflicting severe damage on its military. The shift indicates that Israel has given up. This is Cope, by the way. The shift indicates that Israel has given up on the dream of toppling the regime through air power. This is Cope. This is face saving. Why wouldn't you have destroyed their military capabilities ahead of time if you had the capacity to do so? It's so fucking stupid. It's a lie. They've literally flexed and said they've bombed Iran 5,000 times. Okay. Oh, really? You were just bombing the same, regime targets 5,000 times? No, you were bombing their military targets as well. How much success you have had in terms of deteriorating their strike capabilities, well, that remains to be seen. As a matter of fact, it's pretty obvious that it hasn't been that successful, considering that Iran has received more success. Iran has actually experienced more success in striking Israeli soil. What is this? It sounds like you want Iran to win the war over Israel and America. What country are you living in? And I'm asking why he wants Iran to win. I've explained this already. It's the best case scenario for ordinary Americans. It's the best case scenario for ordinary Iranians. America retreating from this senseless bloodshed is good for everybody. It's literally win-win-win. It's good for the world. It's good for American citizens in general. We need to be humbled a little bit. Okay, our forces, our endless, expansive military ambitions, our senseless bloodshed all around the world needs to come to a close so that we can actually focus on ourselves. Ironically enough, Donald Trump actually kept repeating this point, not in those terms, but he kept repeating the same energy, right? He would be like, "Oh, why are we doing all these regime change wars?" Right? I assume you're a little bit of a Trump sympathizer, so you should be sympathetic to this message. Trump presented himself as an isolationist initially. Obviously, he's changed that now because he's clearly not an isolationist, but like he ran and won on isolationism. And what was the argument? The argument is, why the fuck are we spending all of this time, all of this effort, all of this money on killing people overseas? Leave them alone and let's focus on ourselves. It's a very simple message. It's a very coherent message. It's a very good message. I agree with it. I've never been a liberal interventionist at all, right? And Republicans, by and large, are also still interventionists. They're just not liberal interventionists. Or they might be when they want to, present an argument to the liberals that's convincing. So, yeah, I do think that if this caused America by force to demonstrate restraint, and it forced us to reconsider our 800 military bases all around the world, and it forced us to reconsider how quick we are to engage in war crimes in these wars of choice, right? And that's ultimately a good thing for everyday American citizens, for ordinary Americans like you and me.
You would have had a nuclear weapon years ago and it would have been used, guaranteed. And one of the reasons you know about the guarantee is because their neighbors were sort of like bystanders. They weren't involved very much. They didn't choose heavy sides. They didn't want to because people were concerned with Iran. There was a big black cloud over the Middle East. They were concerned, but all of a sudden the war starts and they start shooting at these five, in particular, 5 countries. They start shooting at Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Oman. They start shooting at them, and everybody was shocked, including us. You know why? Because they're sick, and they had a plan to take over the Middle East. And some of those missiles that were shot at them were locked long before we even started this process. They were locked and loaded and aimed at those countries. They wanted to take over the Middle East. But
there are parts of this where like the truth slips out when he says like, well, you know, they're doing more than we thought they would. You know, that's when like a little bit of honesty slips out of the commentary, right? Like he wants to say we're fucking punishing them and we're winning, and he does say it every now and then, but in between those moments there are instances of honesty. Brutal honesty, cold, hard honesty.
we happened to come along, so it wasn't so easy. So right now their Navy is sunk in the largest elimination of a foreign Navy that has taken place, maybe ever, but certainly since World War II. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and communications capabilities are totally dismantled. And one of the problems they do have when they deal with us is we deal with people and the people aren't able to communicate with anybody else. So, you know, because all of their leadership has been gone. The first level is gone, and they met to pick a new level, and they're gone. They're all gone because they didn't make a deal and because they're sick people. They're really sick. They're really sinister, sick people. And if anybody thinks it was okay to have a group of people like this to have nuclear capability, nuclear weapons, and if we didn't attack with the B-2 bombers, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks of that, maybe 4 weeks. But between 2 and 4 weeks, they were planning to have a nuclear weapon. If we didn't hit them at that time with the B-2 bombers, and one of the great air raids in history, maybe the greatest, dark at night, no moon, no light, every single bomb hit its mark and just obliterated that place. So it's now buried deep under earth. And it was an amazing thing, but they would have a nuclear, and they would have used it without question. And you know that because why did they shoot all these countries that weren't even really involved with them? They weren't involved. They had no big problems because they're sick, because they want to take over the Middle East, not just Israel. Certainly Israel would have been the first on their list. They would have used nuclear weapons, a nuclear, you don't need too many of them. But they would have used a nuclear weapon on Israel, and they would have used it on the neighbors, and then they would have come after us. And if we had a weak president, they would have done great damage. But fortunately, you don't have a weak president. I knew what was happening.
It is kind of funny that like the main motivator for why all of this is happening is just a complete lie. A lie that they didn't even spend a good deal of time propagandizing the population into believing. And as a matter of fact, a lie that they diminished from the start because they wanted to get a W in the last 12-day war. They spent a good deal of time talking about how the Iranian nuclear capabilities had been destroyed. And they told them over and over again, like, we destroyed. They told their fans, they told their base, they told the MAGA call over and over again, like, we destroy. Everyone's doing fake news. Everyone's doing fake news where they say like the Iranian nuclear capabilities have not been deteriorated or diminished. It's like they said it's all obliterated. Anyone that even dares to question that reality is doing fake news. They're un-American, blah, blah, blah. So it's a little bit difficult to then, in a matter of months, turn around and say, we have they put those facilities back into use instantly.
And I think we've been...
Also, for the record, it was a lie from the start, too. It was a lie prior to the 12-day war as well. It's just a lie that they keep deploying and then undermining and then deploying again.
Proven right. You know, they took one missile, went 2,500 miles. They supposedly didn't have a missile like that. They had no missile with that capability. But they shot the now famous Ireland, the island that the UK was very afraid to give us because they didn't want to get dragged in. But we don't want to get dragged into their wars either. You know? It's one thing we're very disappointed, I'll say it publicly, we're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said, 25 years ago, I mean, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics and I understood politics. I said 25 years ago that NATO's a paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue, but they will never come to ours. And I want you to remember that we said this. They didn't.
We're not the paper tiger. NATO is. Okay, what's NATO? NATO is America, dumbass. When you say NATO is a paper tiger, you're saying we are a paper tiger. We are NATO. Without us, there is no NATO. Who is this argument for? He's doing the classic, like, throw allies under the bus move that he does all the time. Yet another clear-cut sign, at least if you know how to read Trump, this is yet another clear-cut sign that he knows the war efforts are not going well. Right? Think about it. This is what he does. He throws motherfuckers under the bus when shit actually goes south.
Come to our rescue. Now they all want to help. When they're annihilated, the other side is annihilated, they said, we'd love to send ships. They actually made a statement, a couple of them, that we...
This is the traitorous lobby AIPAC trying to tell Americans who they can and can't speak to. Israel will decide for us who is allowed to speak in American media, they say. Then this lobby pretends it has no control. Good, then you can fuck off. We don't care what you think. Yeah.
want to get involved when the war is over. No, it's supposed to get involved when the war is beginning, or even before it begins. We had the UK say that we'll send, this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it, and we don't need them. We estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission, and we're way ahead of schedule. If you look at what we've done in terms of the destruction of that country, I mean, we're way ahead. Think of it, they have no Navy, and they had good ships. 154 ships have been shot down and are resting very nicely at the bottom of the sea.
This is such a funny... It's just such a like a stupid W that is so inconsequential. I don't even know what to say. Like, we blew up jet skis off the coastline of Iran, and they still clearly have other small commercial boats that they are using to tow oil tankers into their one island where they're conducting a toll system. Like, it's so stupid. Like that. Okay, yeah, we blew up a ship that was not even in combat or anything like that. It was actually it was invited to do a demonstration alongside the navies of numerous other countries, and we engaged in we engaged in like such an immoral act. And then we took that as a big W, like, oh, it was so wonderful that we shot this ship down that didn't even have arms on it, you know? Ridiculous.
And we did that in a matter of less than a week. Because we have the greatest military in the world by far, nobody even close. So we estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. 26 days in, we're really a lot ahead of schedule. The Iranian regime is now admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. They know it. That's why they're talking to us. They wouldn't talk otherwise. But they're talking to us because they've got a disaster on their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback. We're free to roam over their cities and towns and destroy all of their crazy nuclear weapons and missiles and drones that they're building. And we're doing that. They now have a chance to make a deal, but that's up to them. And they'll tell you we're not.
Wait, whoa, this is good. Breaking, Trump officially tacos out again. Trump has extended the deadline for the second time. Oh my God. As per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I'm pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6th, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Oh my God. Oh my God. April 6th, Invasion Day. Maybe it's because they haven't been able to amass enough troop presence in the region. I mean, I still think I think tomorrow is the day after market close, but who knows? But I still think this is a fake. This is a fake out. But who knows? He said this because of today's market close. Yeah, what is it like? 12 points. A tornado is hitting the Gulf tomorrow. They can't do it. Let's see what Chuck Schumer has to say about that. Let's take a look.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And
Raina Jen, thank you for the 25 gifted subs and another 5. Thank you for the 30. Whoa, another 5. Thank you for the 35 gifted subs. Not Brian, thank you for the 5 gifted. And a strange sparrow, thank you for the 5
now,
gifted.
all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress
Decoy,
and most
thank you for the
importantly,
10
the
gifted.
American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. I mean, that's an old one, by the way. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, that's like a old but gold from Chucky. Okay. If you want to know where his opinion is, yes, it's an old video. I'm using it as a meme. I'm using it as a placeholder to show you what his actual perspective is on this stuff. But, you know. AGF squared, thank you for the 5 gifted. Knowing the religious freaks in our military, they're probably going to do it close to Easter Sunday. No, that's fucking, that kind of stuff doesn't matter when it's tactics. Can of Salamanders, thank you for the 5 gifted. Yeah, Trump said this prior to extending the deadline. The Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback. And yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal. Wrong. They better get serious soon before it's too late, because once that happens, there's no turning back and it won't be pretty. Every time he says stuff like this, the market suffers. And then he has to go back and be like, no, just kidding. We're actually doing great. We're doing great. Here's how it works and how it's worked so far. Donald Trump comes out, does something spectacularly stupid. Iran retaliates. Market responds a deep red. Okay? Then Donald Trump tries to correct it by turning around and saying, oh, they're begging for a deal with us. They really want a deal to happen. And we're very favorable. We're looking at this deal very favorably. Then the market corrects itself because they're just like leaning into any positive message they can. Okay? Then the Iranian government comes out and says, that's not true. We're not dealing with you guys at all. Fuck you. Here's a couple missiles in the direction of Israel and in the direction of your military bases in the region. Okay? Then the market plummets again. And then when Donald Trump sees that market plummeting again, even after the tough talk and the niceties, he turns around and does more tough talk, only to then pace it with positive messages once again. And it's just so unbelievably stupid. NASDAQ in correction, down 10%. Tech Bros made a call. NASDAQ closes in correction. Gold and bond slump as Iran war jolts markets. What are the markets even for if it's not based on anything happening in reality? Just for like the wealthiest Americans to keep making money and also to do insider trading, I think, at that point. White House envoy Steve Witkoff, this according to Barack Unit 8200 Ravid. Once again, wee woo. Barack Unit 8200 Ravid says White House envoy Steve Witkoff says the U.S. has strong signs that Iran can be convinced that it has no better alternative but to accept the U.S. terms for ending the war. They're looking for an off-ramp, Witkoff said. We told Iran they should not miscalculate again.